වන් බුද්ධ වන් වර්ල්ඩ් කියන සංවිධානයේ සමාරම්භක උත්සවයත් එක්ක ආරම්භ කරන්නේ මුඛ්‍ය දේශනයත් එක්ක ඒ සඳහා ආරාධනා කරලා තියෙනවා කොළඹ තරුණ බෞද්ධ සංගමේ සභාපති පණ්ඩුක මහේන්ද්‍ර ජයසේකර මැතිතුමාට එතුමා මේ ස්ථානයට පැමිණ සිටිනවා. ඉතින් එතුමා මේ ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන්ම අද දවසේ ආරම්භ කරන්නට යෙදුන වන් බුද්ධ වන් වර්ල්ඩ් කියන සංවිධානයේ මුඛ්‍ය පරමාර්ථයත් එක්ක එතුමාගේ දේශනාවේ පැවැත්වීම සඳහා අපි මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ආරාධනා කරනවා. We have the keynote speech. We have kindly invited Mr. Panduka Mahendra Jayasekara, President, Colombo Young Men's Buddhist Association. We have the brief introduction about him, our keynote speaker. Honorable President of the Colombo Young Men's Buddhist Association. He served as a managing director of the large group of companies listed on the Colombo Stock Exchange for uninterrupted 28 years of processes, wide range of the experience in the corporate management, founder and the chairman of the CMA Sri Lanka, Cost and Management Accounting Standards Board. Mr. Jayasekara holds BSc Special Honours degree in the Business Administration from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura and is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountant of Sri Lanka. He holds the postgraduate diploma in Buddhist Studies with the distinction pass and a Master of Arts degree in Buddhist Studies with the merit pass from the Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies, University of Kelaniya. He also the member of the Economic Council of the La Salle Brothers Sri Lanka chapter. So I cordially invite Mr. Panduka Mahendra Jayasekara for the keynote speech.
බෞද්ධ ඉතිහාසය, බෞද්ධ තොරතුරු, ගමේ නගරේ, පන්සලේ තොරතුරු, පෙරහැර නරඹන්න, විචිත්‍රවත් ධර්ම දේශනා අහන්න. මේ සියල්ල ගෙනෙන එකම බෞද්ධ YouTube නාලිකාව SL පන්සල. subscribe කරන්න, like කරන්න, comment කරන්න, share කරන්න. SL පන්සල.
Good afternoon, most venerable members of Mahasangha, foreign delegates who have come from countries as far away as United States, Dominican Republic, Mexico, and maybe Taiwan, China, Thailand, and many other countries. And my dear friends, needless to say, I am extremely happy to be here speaking as the keynote speaker at the second session of One World, One Buddha. For a wider benefit of the audience, I'll speak in both languages, English and Sinhala, so you have to excuse me for that. But I'll do so for the wider benefit of this audience. We are gathered here this afternoon as inheritors of a priceless gem. අපි අතන මෙතන රැස් වෙලා ඉන්නේ මිල කරන්න බැරි උරුමයක උරුමකාරයෝ හැටියට. That is Buddhism. That is Buddhism. And Buddhism is timeless, akalika. Buddhism is not confined by cultures, continents, religion, or rituals. That's very important. And Buddha did not teach only to monks and meditators. බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ දේශනා කළේ ස්වාමින් වහන්සේලාට සහ භාවනා කරන අයට විතරක් නෙමෙයි. He taught his teachings are for rulers, workers, families, and also nations. So, Buddhism is universal. Buddhism is universal. And I suppose that is what you mean. This organization mean by one Buddha, one world. Because Buddha is one, that we all understand. බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ එක්කෙනයි. ඒ අපි හැමෝටම මේක තේරෙනවා. But what do you mean by one world? එක ලෝකයයි කියලා කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? What is meant by one world? Now, just to explain a little bit from a lay point of view, a layman's point of view, Arahant Mahinda, Venerable Sirs, came to Sri Lanka, to Anuradhapura, not very far away from here, about 30-40 kilometers from here. And he discoursed Chullahatti Padopama Sutta to King Devanam Piyatissa, who lived in the 3rd century before Common Era. ක්‍රිස්තු පූර්ව 3 වෙනි සියවසේ විතර ජීවත් වෙච්ච දේවානම් පියතිස්ස රජුරවන්ට චුල්ලහත්ති පදෝපම සූත්‍රය දේශනා කළා. අරහන්ත් මහින්ද. And he chose this discourse or short discourse on the simile on the footprint of an elephant. That's Chullahatti Padopama Sutra. Why did he choose the elephant? He could have chosen a bull. He could have chosen an antelope. He could have chosen a crocodile. He could have chosen a lion, tiger, leopard. Why did he choose the elephant? He chose the elephant because elephant's footprint can encompass the footprint of any animal in the world. Elephant footprint, Venerable Sir, can encompass the footprint of any animal in the world. That is the universality of Buddhism. What he meant by that was any phenomena in the world, both physical and mental, is included in Dhamma. Dhamma includes everything. That is the universal nature. Vishwa ධර්මයක් කියලා කියන්නේ අපි ඒක හින්දා. එතකොට මේ විශ්ව ධර්මයක් කියන බෞද්ධ ධර්මය, if Buddhism is universal, if the world is universal, if we are talking of one world, then we should have a same value system in the world. That same value system is the Buddhist value system. Now, what is the Buddhist value system? Buddhist value system is very profound, very deep, very subtle. And I want to ask this audience whether we have fully captured the deeper meaning of the Buddhist value system. Buddhist value system, to me, is economically prosperous world. A better governed world. A world where economic resources are fairly shared among the world population. Value system is the young people, the youth, getting equal opportunities and fair share of resources. That is the Buddhist value system. And then, on that foundation, we can build a spiritually advanced ethical society. අපිට අධ්‍යාත්මික වශයෙන් දියුණු සමාජයක් ගොඩනගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ හොඳ ආර්ථික ශක්තියක් තියෙන, හොඳට පාලනය වෙන, හොඳ අධ්‍යාපනයක් දරුවන්ට ලබලා දෙන, හොඳ වගකීමක් තියෙන, හොඳ වගවීමක් තියෙන ගුණ සමුදායක් තියෙන රටවල් වලින්. In that case, we need to ask ourselves, why Europe, being mostly a secular country or secular continent, why European countries are more economically advanced than Sri Lanka? Foreign delegates have been here a few days, I believe, and you have traveled this country now. Seeing Sri Lanka, you would have thought that Sri Lanka is such a beautiful country, and you like to come back here again if you get a chance. But for a moment, did you think if Sri Lanka is economically prosperous, if Sri Lanka is a well-governed country, if Sri Lanka has a good education system where no child is left behind, does Sri Lanka have a good welfare system that will protect the poor? The answer, as a Sri Lankan, to that question is no. So, how come countries in Europe, countries in Far East look after their finances, public finances better? How do they look after the poor better than we do? How do they educate the young and give them hope better than we do? In my opinion, although they don't profess to be of any religion, they have understood Buddhist principles. They are governed by Buddhist principles. මට හිතන විදිහට ලංකාව කියන්නේ අපි බෞද්ධ රටක් කියලා කිව්වට අපි නමට විතරක් බෞද්ධ රටක් කියන රටක් හින්දා. අපි බෞද්ධ ධර්මය හරියට තේරුම් අරගෙන පිළිපදින රටක් නොවන හින්දා. Because in Sri Lanka, on every hill there is a temple. In every village there is a Buddhist monk. But Sri Lanka remains a very poor country in Asia or in the world. And Sri Lanka has a very poor governance structure. Sri Lanka has a very poor education system. Sri Lanka has a very poor public welfare system. So we have moved away from Buddhist teachings. But even unknowingly, European countries and also the countries in the Far East and maybe certain countries in Americas have understood and practiced Buddhist principles. So we have to address our minds to that. Now, Mr. William Chan, the Secretary General, when he spoke in the morning, he said, Buddhist countries lead the world in innovations. අලුත් සොයා ගැනීම් වලින් බෞද්ධ රටවල් ඉදිරියෙන් ඉන්නවයි කියලා අපේ ලේකම් මහලේකම්තුමා one world one Buddha මහලේකම්තුමා උදේ කිව්වා. අපි ඒව ෂෙයා කරන්න ඕනයි කියලා. We should share the economic wealth we are creating in the Buddhist countries. We should share. That's what he said. But as a community, we have failed to do that. We have failed to do that. So we need to understand how we can take the Buddhist teachings to the world. How we can really execute this vision of one Buddha, one world. Because the entire world should embrace the Buddhist value system. And it is nothing new. Dhamma has 6 different definitions according to Buddhist teachings. According to Nikaya text, Nikaya සංග්‍රහයට අනුව ධම්ම කියන වචනෙට අදහස් 6ක් තියෙනවා. ඒකෙන් එක අදහසක් තමයි හොඳ ගති ගුණ. හොඳ ගති ගුණ. හොඳ යහපැවැත්ම. Good conduct. Good conduct of kings, good governance in a country, good economic management is also Dhamma. So we have not embraced the basic principles enunciated in Buddhist teachings. So that is something we need to understand. Now, if you take, we have to ask ourselves once again, now if you take a country like Switzerland, they look after their public finances much better. If you take a country like Germany, in spite of their contribution to trigger the Second World War, they have better social harmony through the lessons they have learned from the war experience they have had. And also having given leadership to the European Renaissance. But Sri Lanka, although we are the home of Theravada Buddhism preserved in Pali language, we lag behind. We lag behind in many areas in relation to other countries. So we need to address our mind, and I am happy that Venerable Mugunuela Anuruddha Thero is giving leadership to this movement, that Sri Lanka should take its rightful place in the world as a center of Buddhism. Because we have 35,000 Buddhist monks in this country. I think probably third in the world in terms of the Buddhist monastic population. First is, I think, Myanmar. Second is China. Third is Sri Lanka. So we have 35,000 Buddhist monks. And with the 35,000 Buddhist monks we have, we should be able to take these teachings to the society. Now, we need to understand what went wrong in Sri Lanka. අපිට ලංකාවේ වැරදුන තැන මොකද්ද? What went wrong in Sri Lanka? අපිට යම්කිසි තැනක් වැරදුනා. අපි ඒ වැරදිච්ච තැන හරියට අඳුන ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒ හරියට අඳුනගෙන ඒ වැරදිච්ච තැනට හරි උත්තරේ මොකද්ද කියලා හොයා ගන්න ඕනේ. In my opinion, where we went wrong is that we did not understand, as I said earlier, deeper teachings of Buddhism in relation to the social application. Social dimension of Buddhism. බෞද්ධ ධර්මයේ තියෙන සමාජ පැතිකඩ. අපි හරියට මං හිතනවා ලාංකික සමාජයේ Sri Lankan society did not understand. Because the Buddhist teachings on political and economic philosophy is very profound. In Aggañña Sutta, Evolution of the World, Buddha talks about evolution of kingship, how to elect a leader. The country should elect a good leader. And Buddha taught the society should elect the most able person in that society as the leader. දක්ෂතම පුද්ගලයාව තමයි නායකයා හැටියට තෝරගන්න ඕනේ. The cleverness. He should be clever. But unfortunately, in some Asian countries with Buddhist heritage, we have moved away from that principle and we elect clever leaders. In Sri Lanka, we have elected clever leaders, but they were clever in winning elections. But we should instead elect people who are clever as well as wise. ප්‍රඥානවන්තයෝ. නුවණ තියෙන මිනිස්සු. Wisdom will allow you to win the trust of the people, the public support. Winning an election is important, but public support is more important. Buddhism doesn't talk about winning the hearts of people. මිනිස්සුන්ගේ හදවත දිනා ගන්න එක නෙමෙයි බෞද්ධ ධර්මය කියන්නේ. මිනිස්සුන්ගේ මනස දිනා ගන්න එක. You should win the minds of the people. That is the Buddhist teaching. So, Buddhist structure is first leadership, then governance, then economy, and then spirituality. It's a top-down approach. Buddhist approach is a top-down approach. First the ruler, then governance, then economy, thereafter spirituality. That is why Buddha emphasized so much on the importance of electing good leaders to run countries. I think it is just that the European countries and countries in the West and also the countries in the Far East practice. But we have failed to capture that concept. So, when you talk about governance, according to Buddhist governance, rule of law should be applied fairly without fear. Without fear. Then, education. Education is not an ornament. It's a right everybody has. And in education, should make sure that nobody is left behind. In Sri Lanka, I was telling William while at lunch, අපි ලංකාවේ 3,50,000ක් ළමයින්ට උගන්වනවා A level වලට advanced level 350,000 students sit for advanced level examination and 300,000 of those children are left behind. Only 50,000 children make themselves into the universities. So we have not created that value system. Then accountability. Accountability according to Buddhism, Hiriotappa. Venerable says, Hiriotappa. Moral shame and moral fear. Buddha described as the twin guardians of the world. ලෝකේ ආරක්ෂා කරන මං හිතන්නේ සිංහලෙන් කියනවා නම් දෙවියෝ දෙන්න කියලා. Accountability. වගවීම. But do we have accountability in this country? Do we have accountability in the world? How accountable the people are? Without moral shame and moral fear, without Hiriotappa, no country can prosper. No society can prosper without accountability. So we have to establish accountability. Then we look at public service. According to Kutadanta Sutta, the public service, the king should ensure an efficient public service. In Sri Lanka, unfortunately, we have a politicized public service which is being bloated and also becoming more and more ineffective. So if you don't address these issues, we will not be able to take Buddhist teachings to even the Sri Lankan society. Because Sri Lankan society is confused. There is fundamental misknowledge, or mohe. There is fundamental misknowledge about how a Buddhist country should be governed. How a good society should be governed. How a good country should be governed. So we have to clear that misknowledge. Because in our Buddhist talks, we do not address these points adequately. We talk about the Four Noble Truths. We talk about Noble Eightfold Path. Then we talk about the cause and effect, dependent co-origination, Paticcasamuppada. We talk about the spiritual path. But we often neglect to speak adequately to our lay society about the political and the economic path the country should take in order to create an ethical society. I think we all have a great responsibility to take this message, Buddha's message, the Buddhist message, to the society. So if we get together, we can do that. Then only we can give true meaning to one Buddha, one world. Because the value system we should create in the world to make the world fair, equitable, and reasonable. We have to have one value system. At the moment, we all know the world is unfair, world is unjust, and the world is unreasonable. But the countries that address these issues prosper. Because without making a country economically prosperous, we cannot build an ethical society. Because once again, in Cakkavatti Siyanath Sutta, in Kotadanta Sutta, Buddha clearly stated, the way to address poverty is not through punishment. If you meet punishment to people who do wrong, the crime will increase. And it is exactly just that what is happening in Sri Lanka. Addressing crime, addressing social disorder should be through making people economically prosperous. By improving and increasing the level of income. Improving the standard of living of people. Only we can address crime. So to address economic prosperity, we have to have a good economic model. Now, although in Buddhist teachings, Buddha have spoken very clearly about perils of getting into debt. ණය ගැනීමේ තියෙන අවාසි ගැන කොච්චර බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ කතා කළත් Sri Lanka is a country running on debt. We are in deep debt. And we are relying on imports without addressing local production, without addressing local agriculture. We cannot have our own economic system to address our problems. So, this is a clear sign of our country moving away from Buddhist teachings. Because Buddhism clearly favors market economy. බෞද්ධ ධර්මයේ වැඩිපුරම බල වෙළඳ නිදහස් ආර්ථික සංකල්පවලට. එහෙම නැතුව පාලනය කරන ආර්ථික සංකල්පවලට නෙමේ බෞද්ධ ධර්මයේ බර. බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ වැඩිපුරම දේශනා කරලා තියෙන පාපනික සූත්‍රය, වාණිජ සූත්‍රය, වඩ්ඩි සූත්‍රය මේ සියලුම දේශනාවල් වල බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ වැඩියෙන් ෆේවර් කරලා තියෙන. He has spoken in favor of the market economic system, where people are given equal economic opportunities without trying to equalize the result. But we try to equalize the result by giving handouts to people, which is completely breaking the principle of energetic striving. උට්ටාන වීරය කියන එක කඩලා දාලා අපි ජනතාව සහනාධාර හරහා දුප්පත්කමින් ගොඩ ගන්න හදනවා. So these principles or these policies are against Buddhism. So that is why we have to ask ourselves whether Sri Lanka in fact is a Buddhist country. If we are to describe Sri Lanka as a Buddhist country, we have to get together and do a lot of work. මේක බෞද්ධ රටක් කියලා කට ඇරලා කියන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න නම් අපිට එක්කහුව වෙලා මේට වැඩිය ලොකු දෙයක් කරන්න තියෙනවා. මේක අපි කරන්න ලෑස්ති වෙන්න ඕනේ. We should get ready to do that. Because if only the venerable monks in Sri Lanka mobilize themselves to take this task to their own hands, only we will be able to achieve this. අපිට මේක එහෙම නැත්තම් කවදාවත් කරන්න හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඉතින් මම හිතනවා අපිට මේක කරන්න අවශ්‍ය ශක්තිය මේ one Buddha one world කියන සංවිධානය හරහා ලොකු ශක්තියක් ලැබෙයි කියලා. Because these organizations will give us the necessary inspiration to do this in our own country. Because I can see the passion the foreign delegates are having to take this concept to the world, take Buddhist principles to the world, and as a Buddhist country, as the country that is home to Theravada Buddhism, we have received directly from India and directly from Arahant Mahinda. So Theravada Buddhism, valuing Theravada Buddhist principles is of utmost importance. And we should be able to take these Buddhist principles to the world. But taking Buddhist principles to the world should be after taking these Buddhist principles to our own society. We need to take Buddhist principles to our own society. So, actually, these are the social dimensions of Buddhism I wanted to talk about. We need to understand the basic structure of Buddhism. The kingship is very important because Buddha very clearly stated that kingship is not inherited. Kingship should be earned. Leadership should be earned. නායකත්වය කියන එක හම්බ කරගන්න ඕන දෙයක්. එහෙම නැතුව අපිට කාගෙන්වත් හම්බගෙන දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. But in certain countries in Asia, leadership is either bought or fought. So that is not leadership. Leadership should be earned. And leadership, to earn leadership, you have to put clever people in front who have wisdom to take the country forward. That is the most important thing. Because sometimes we believe 5 precepts alone can make a ruler just. But 5 precepts also, we need to understand how it will apply to a ruler. Say, for example, with this example, I'll conclude my speech. අපි කියනවා අදින්නා දාන හොරකම් කරන එක. In Aganya Sutta, the first king was elected to stop stealing. People in that society got together and went to the most able person in that society and told him, you be the king. You have to stop stealing. You have to stop theft and punish them and banish them. But stealing is not only for economic resources. Stealing is not only for economic resources, material resources. භෞතික දේවල් හොරකම් කරන එක විතරක් නෙමෙයි හොරකම් කියන්නේ. How about a person who utters falsehood? බොරු කියන එක්කෙනා මොකද කරන්නේ? නායකයෙක් බොරු නම් කියන්නේ මොකද කරන්නේ? The person who steals economic resources steals our wealth. But person who tells lies steals our future. බොරු කියන එක්කෙනා අපේ අනාගතය අපෙන් හොරකම් කරගන්නවා. භෞතික දේවල් හොරකම් කරන එක්කෙනා අපේ ධනය හොරකම් කරනවා. ඒතර මේ දෙකම හොරකම. I think we have to have a deeper understanding of what Buddhist principles are. And then only we will be able to teach these Buddhist principles to our children. In fact, I want to impress upon the foreign delegates who are here. The Colombo Young Men's Buddhist Association is a 126-year-old organization. And we believe the world's oldest functioning Buddhist association is the Colombo Young Men's Buddhist Association. In Sri Lanka, it is the oldest, foremost, and the strongest Buddhist association. And it is one of the strongest civil associations in Sri Lanka with a very, very strong balance sheet. So we basically dedicate the wealth we earn to educate our children. අපි අපේ කොළඹ තරුණ බෞද්ධ සංගමේ ආදායමෙන් තියෙන ධනයෙන් වැඩිපුරම මුදල් වියදම් කරන්නේ අපේ තරුණ ළමයින්ගේ අධ්‍යාපනය සකස් කරලා දෙන්න. ඒ විතරක් නෙමෙයි, we should also create entrepreneurship in this country. ව්‍යවසායකත්වය ඇති කරන්න අපි වැඩ කරන්න ඕනේ. Otherwise the problem in this country, ලංකාවේ තියෙන ප්‍රධානම ප්‍රශ්නයක් තමයි අපේ ආම්දුරනේ, ලංකාවේ බෞද්ධයා කියන්නේ දුප්පත් මිනිහෙක්. ලංකාවේ බෞද්ධයා කියන්නේ දුප්පත් මිනිහෙක්. අපි බලන්න ඕනේ බෞද්ධයව කොහොමද පෝසත් කරන්න කියලා. බෞද්ධයව සල්ලිකාරයෙක් කරන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා බලන්න ඕනේ. බෞද්ධයව සල්ලිකාරයෙක් කරන්න නම් අපේ තරුණ ළමයින්ව සල්ලිකාරයෝ කරන්න ඕනේ. තරුණ සමාජයේ සල්ලිකාරයෝ කරන්න ඕනේ. තරුණ සමාජයට සල්ලිකාරයෝ වෙන්න අවස්ථාව ලැබලා දෙන්න ඕනේ අපි. We should make our youth rich. They should have money in their hands. Then only they will come to the temple. If they don't have money in their hand, they will never come to the temple. So Colombo IMBA is doing a lot of work to create and promote entrepreneurship in this country, targeting the youth, not only Buddhist youth. Making Buddhist youth rich alone will not make this country rich. But we should make sure that all youth are rich. ලංකාවේ ඉන්න සියලුම තරුණයන් පිළිබඳව අපි අවධානය යොමු කරන්න ඕනේ. ලංකාවේ බහුතර ජනතාව හැටියට. Sri Lanka's majority population is Buddhist, so we have a responsibility to make sure that everybody is rich. Then only the Buddhists will be able to enjoy their wealth. So I think with those words I wish to conclude, but what I want to stress once again is that we have a lot of work to do to take Buddhist values to the world. And if the rest of the Buddhist world is looking at Sri Lanka to draw inspiration, then we have to give that inspiration. To give that inspiration, we should be a strong country. අපි ශක්තිමත් රටක් වෙන්න ඕනේ. We should be a strong country in economic management. We should be a strong country in public affairs. We should be a strong country in government. We should be able to go out to the world and speak to the world and tell them how well we are running this country. Then only the Buddhist values will reach the world. Otherwise, the rest of the countries in the world look at Sri Lanka and think Buddhism has failed Sri Lanka. No, Buddhism has not failed Sri Lanka. බෞද්ධ ධර්මය නෙමෙයි අපේ රට අසමත් කළේ. අපේ රට බෞද්ධ ධර්මය අසමත් කළා. ශ්‍රී ලංකා failed Buddhism අපේ හාමුදුරනේ. බුද්ධිසම් නෙමෙයි රට අසමත් කළේ. හැබැයි අපේ රට බුද්ධිසම් බෞද්ධ ධර්මය අසමත් කළා. අපි යන්නේ ඒකෙන් මේ බෞද්ධ ධර්මයක් මේ රටත් ගලව ගන්න ඕනේ. මේ ගලව ගන්න නම් මම හිතන්නේ මේ ස්වාමින් වහන්සේලාට මම හිතන්නේ අති විශාල කාර්යභාරයක් තියෙනවා. අති විශාල කාර්යභාරයක් තියෙනවා. මේක ගැන කතා කරලා මේ ජනතාව එක්කහුව කරලා ජනතාවට මේක කියලා දෙන්න. So with those words, I wish to conclude. I thank all of you for this very valuable opportunity. But customarily, Sri Lankans, when they conclude their speeches, say, may the noble triple gem bless you, but I don't wish to say that. මම කැමති නෑ කියන්න ඔබ සැමට තෙරුවන් සරණයි කියලා. මොකද අපි එහෙම අවුරුදු 60ක් 100ක් විතර කිව්වා. හැබැයි අපිට වෙච්ච දෙයක් නෑ ඒකෙන්. But I would like to say, may the noble triple gem bless Sri Lanka. ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට තෙරුවන් සරණයි. බොහොම ස්තුතියි.
බෞද්ධ ඉතිහාසය, බෞද්ධ තොරතුරු, ගමේ නගරේ, පන්සලේ තොරතුරු, පෙරහැර නරඹන්න, විචිත්‍රවත් ධර්ම දේශනා අහන්න. මේ සියල්ල ගෙනෙන එකම බෞද්ධ YouTube නාලිකාව SL පන්සල. subscribe කරන්න, like කරන්න, comment කරන්න, share කරන්න. SL පන්සල.